My name is Brian Ryan, and yes, my parents hated me. But that's besides the point. I'm here to ask you a question. Is a man not entitled to read some decent comic books once in a while? No, says the man at Marvel. We're too busy concentrating on making movies or selling you events that eat up 2/3 of our annual publishing schedule. No, says the man at DC. We're too busy canceling our entire publishing line so we can relaunch it as a watered-down Marvel ripoff in the vain hope of outselling the very books we're copying. No, says the man at the indie publishers, and don't bother me while I'm counting my AMC money. So I decided to build a place where you would know if a comic book was excellent or sucked major balls before you spent your hard-earned dollars on them. I built Comic Book Issues. Enjoy the show. And for God's sakes, don't go anywhere near the little girls holding the giant syringes. You'll be sorry.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Comic Book Issues. I'm your host, the Last Angry Geek. What is it about archetypes? Ever since Robin Hood, the idea of a heroic archer has permeated the collective consciousness. Both Marvel and DC have their own versions of the bow and arrow hero. DC has the Green Arrow, a narcissistic playboy who can't hold down a committed relationship. And Marvel has Hawkeye, a narcissistic playboy who can't hold down a committed relationship. But whereas Green Arrow died and came back to life a few years ago, it was a few years ago that Hawkeye died and came back to life. So on today's episode, this is Hawkeye, issues 4 and 5.
The new series recently launched under the helm of creators Matt Fraction and David Aja. My apologies for any mispronunciation there. The book has a simple premise. This is what Hawkeye, Clint Barton, is doing on his days off. He's never in his purple uniform and mostly hangs out with his newly adopted Russian mafia dog, Arrow, though he's vowed to find a better name, and fellow Hawkeye, Kate Bishop.
Kate assumed the Hawkeye identity while Clint was dead. She was one of the leaders of the Young Avengers and hasn't really been seen since the end of the Children's Crusade. And now you know, and knowing is half the battle. G.I. Joe!
Issue 4 opens with a shot of Hawkeye killing a man. We then jump to the rooftop of the brownstone he lives at, where Kate asks him if he's ever killed anyone. He hems and haws, but a neighbor says Avengers don't do that. Clint denies being an Avenger when the SHIELD helicarrier arrives overhead and two soldiers rappel in, grab Clint, and take him away in broad daylight. Aboard the ship, Captain America and Maria Hill inform him the tape has been stolen. In 3 days, a VHS tape will be auctioned in Madripoor among the most reprehensible crime bosses in the world. If the tape is exposed to the world, SHIELD, the Avengers, and the President are all going to come under fire for his actions. Back at his home, Kate is waiting for him. He doesn't tell her what's happening, only that she needs to keep her distance for a while. Clint arrives in Madripoor, but is immediately spirited away by armed security to a locked room, which he promptly strolls out of, having presumably kicked the guards' asses. He steals a woman's cab and then asks the driver to take him to find some action, but falls asleep. He wakes up to find the driver stealing his wallet. They fight and it gets grabbed by several thugs, one of whom gets away. To make back some of the stolen cash, Clint starts driving around the cab. But since he doesn't know where to find anything, takes an early lunch with other cabbies who point him to the Madripoor Pearl as his destination. He enters the casino and is almost immediately black-bagged.
Can you imagine how humiliating it must be to walk around in public with a black bag over your face? For God's sakes, I'm right here! Weren't we the same person? It's been covered.
Hawkeye is tied to a chair and roughed up by thugs working for disfigured terrorist Madame Mask. Awakening from a knockout blow in Mask's room, he admits the tape contains him assassinating a terrorist, something that could end his life and embarrass the United States government. SHIELD gave him an unlimited credit card to get it back. Madame Mask asks him where the card is.
I hid it in the one place I knew they would never look. A DVD of the movie Balls of Fury. Or, as the Chinese say, ping pong.
Mask retrieves the card, intending to use SHIELD's money to buy the tape for her own use, and has Clint taken away to a nice hotel room. He's thrown on the bed, still tied up to a chair, and exhaustion gets the better of him. Then, ninjas! The next morning, Mask is waiting for the auction to start when Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, enters. The bidding starts and goes around from Agent Byzantine, no idea who he is, to the Kingpin, to the Mafia, to the Mandarin, I guess, to the Crimson Cowl from the Masters of Evil, to Hydra. Finally, Madame Mask bids 1 billion euros and shuts them all up. She takes the tape up to her room and demands to be left alone. Then, removing her mask, we see that it's actually Kate Bishop, and the real Madame Mask is tied up in her room. Issue 5 opens with the still trussed-up Hawkeye flying out the window of the Pearl. He comments how this is only slightly better than a few moments ago, and we flash back to see him awaken in time to avoid being filleted. The ninja blade slices up his leg restraints, and he bolts for the window. In Mask's suite, Kate is stunned to see Hawkeye kill a terrorist said to have been assassinated by U.S. Navy SEALs. Mask's bodyguards start pounding on the door and barge in to check on her after the ruckus that Clint just caused. They find the real Mask tied up and draw on Kate just as Clint falls past the window. With gravity about to do him in, all seems lost when a flying shuttle catches him. It's Maria Hill. With the chair shattered, he fights off the ninjas as Hill loops the shuttle. The ninjas all fall save one, who decides to drop rather than accept Clint's help. A now fully dressed and furious Madame Mask turns on Kate, asking her if she smokes. Kate doesn't, and Mask relates that she used to. She hated not being in control of herself, so she fought her addiction. But she's decided she's going to smoke an entire pack and use Kate's face for the ashtray. Lady Viper and the Kingpin both play concerned party to her when Kate tells them to wrap it up. Reunited with bow and arrow, a sonic arrow to be precise, Clint makes his entrance, forgetting that he has a bare foot and there's shattered glass on the floor. They rush out of the ballroom. Clint asks for the tape and Kate realizes it's still in Mask's VCR. They turn and head towards the assembled villains. They fight their way through Hydra, AIM, the Hand, and the Mafioso. Taking the stairwell, Kate catches Clint up on everything that's happened and admits that she watched the tape. She calls him on the murder, but he reminds her he never said that he didn't kill anyone. He won't lie to her, ever. Of course, then it hits him that it was her who was rooting around his colon earlier. The pair hit the elevator just as Mask arrives and fires off a shot. Kate drags Clint inside the elevator and trades stares with Mask as the doors shut. We see Clint has been wearing a bulletproof vest this whole time. He awakens in a hospital to find Maria, Kate, and Nick Fury Jr. there.
It's a long story. Let's just pretend that in this universe, David Hasselhoff begot Samuel L. Jackson and get on with our lives, okay?
Jr. admits the identities of the Navy SEALs who killed the terrorist are secure. Kate's surprised by this. She saw the tape. Apparently, S.H.I.E.L.D. knew there was a leak looking for the identity of the terrorists' killers. So they fabricated 3 tapes, one with Hawkeye, one with Captain America, and one with Wolverine killing him. Since it was Hawkeye's tape that was stolen, they knew which of their possible moles took it and arrested him. Kate points out that this put the Avengers in terrible danger, but Clint points out that the Navy SEALs were the real heroes. He just wanted to help protect them. The helicarrier flies over New York as the adventure comes to an end.
And there you have it. Although this was the book's first 2-parter, it still more or less follows the formula Matt Fraction has set up of one-off adventures set in a tad more realistic version of the Marvel Universe. I.e. no Asgardian trolls show up attacking mutants from an alternate dimension. So is Hawkeye a near miss or a bullseye? Let's take a closer look.
First off, Matt Fraction has created a book that so far is bogged down in very little continuity. This makes it easy to pick up and jump in at any issue. Simply put, Clint Barton is an uncomplicated man who's trying to help out regular folks when he's not saving the world with the Avengers. Clint is nicely pathetic in this book. His only friends are a dog and a teenage heiress. But that's for the best, as too many books get bogged down with bringing in high-name guest stars. Fraction is keeping it simple. This is Clint and Kate's book, period. And there's none of that Batman-Robin stuff here. Kate is Clint's equal in the ways that matter. He might be calling the shots, but he trusts her to get it done. In fact, all, or at least most of the dialogue is just these two bouncing zingers off one another, and it creates a lot of fun moments. Otherwise, we're inside Clint's head, and his monologues are usually just as entertaining. However, sometimes the lack of continuity is an issue. He sleeps with some random redhead in issue 3, but this is after Marvel Ubermensch Brian Michael Bendis went to the trouble of getting him and Spider-Woman together. Do they have an open relationship? Is it too soon for them to be exclusive? If there's one character I wish would show up in this book, it's Spider-Woman, but just so Clint could dump her and get back to having shamelessly fun adventures. Clint isn't a genius. He's no great moral authority. He's just a regular guy that knows how to shoot a bow and arrow, and that's what makes this book work. It's ground-level heroics. Just a guy, a girl, and occasionally a dog beating up normal people who are doing bad things. Sure, in these 2 issues we get a lot of villains, but they're all ninjas, mad scientists, and the like. There are never any superpowers in play, which keeps the book grounded in a way that works for it. Guest penciler Javier Pulido's art never feels that drastically different from regular penciler David Aja, so these two issues feel right at home with the preceding three. Both men practice a minimalist approach to art that works for this title. Frankly, if a more detailed artist like Jim Lee or Nick Bradshaw took over this book, I think it would lose something. Also, the book's unspoken hero is colorist Matt Hollingsworth. He manages to make the somewhat two-dimensional art pop by using specific colors for specific groups of characters. He really shines during Hawkeye's fight with the Hydra, Ninja, and other villains. He makes do with a muted palette that really complements the book's tone.
Okay, now I'm no fan of Hawkeye. The character never really did anything for me in the comics or the Avengers movie. The closest I came to being a fan was when he was the leader of the Thunderbolts back in the 90s. I'm far more invested in Kate Bishop from her time in the Young Avengers. That said, this book is great. It gives you short, easy-to-follow adventures that are heavy on the action and humor. I give Hawkeye issues 4 and 5 out of 5 stars. Hawkeye works for the longtime comic book fan and the casual reader. This just might be the best book that Marvel is currently putting out. Pick it up. You'll thank me later. Until next time, true believers, this is Comic Book Issues, and I'm your host, The Last Angry Geek.